Hello, everyone. In this video, we're going to be expanding on our synchronous lesson regarding the introduction to the Call of Cthulhu and cosmicism by exploring the ways in which H.P. Lovecraft frames and describes Cthulhu and the Cthulhu bas-relief in order to evoke the sensations and the philosophy associated with cosmicism. Now, one of the other things we're going to discuss is Lovecraft's prose style, his style as an author, and the way in which this kind of Baroque prose style that was described in the H.P. Lovecraft documentary, H.P. Lovecraft Fear the Unknown, comes to the forefront here, and the elaborate structures of his, well, writing itself, the language that he uses, the syntax, is an attempt on his part to appropriately reflect and capture the sensations that he wants to evoke in his creatures and in his stories. Cthulhu himself is functionally an embodiment of cosmicism. Every single creation and creature that Lovecraft presents in his mature phase after the Call of Cthulhu is, in a sense, designed to provoke the sensations of cosmicism, to demonstrate to us, rather than just tell us, that our existence is transient and meaningless, that there's a vast, grand cosmic sphere beyond the known, beyond anything that we could ever grapple with, and make manifest the unintelligibility of the universe, the inapplicability of our categories, of our understandings, and our being in this much larger universe that, quite frankly, does not care about us because we are insignificant specks of cosmic dust. Cthulhu is an embodiment, is a reflection, a kind of symbolic representation of a universe that is fundamentally uncaring and unconscious. Even though he is this vast cyclopean deity beyond mankind's most fevered imaginings, he isn't actually meant to represent the consciousness of the universe or some kind of divine force. He is literally on the level of the story, but symbolically, metaphorically, his incomprehensibility is a representation of the real universe in which we live. The fact that that universe is beyond our understanding, it's uncaring, it's utterly inhuman. He is not terrifying because he is some monster like Godzilla that can rise up out of the ocean and trample cities. He's not terrifying because he is a bizarre combination of things that should not be joined together. He is not an example of ontological horror in the discussion of him being a human, a dragon, and an octopus hybrid. Rather, he's terrifying because of what he represents. He represents this meaninglessness of all human belief systems and categories. He is, in himself, just as Lovecraft's other creations like Dagon, Azathoth, and Yog-Sothoth, and The Color Out of Space, he is a representation of this incomprehensible, chaotic universe beyond our pitiful, placid island of ignorance, this pitiful sphere of the known on which we live our lives. He is not evil. He is not a monster. He can't be understood. He can't be classified. He can't be neutralized. He's beyond our subjective human classifications of good and evil, living and dead. So ontological horror, we said, was this unification of categories. And it seems like Cthulhu might be that in the sense that he is a human caricature, a dragon, and an octopus hybrid brought together. But in reality, where ontological horror is the commingling of our categories, Cthulhu, cosmicism, and epistemological horror is the transcendence of all those categories, wherein the commingling of categories, the fusion of categories, is insufficient to neutralize and describe or to account for the true nature of something that is beyond our understanding. And we'll get into that as we discuss the Cthulhu bas-relief. Cthulhu represents the crux of quasi-science fiction weird tales. In a quasi-science fiction weird tale, we are not confronted with violations of natural law. In a supernatural weird tale, we're presented with something impossible. In a quasi-science fiction weird tale, we come to recognize that what we thought were the laws of reality, the comprehensible laws of reality that we use to neutralize and understand it, to grapple with the universe, and to put it into nice, organized categories because we understand how things are supposed to work. Those laws are not violated, they're supplemented. New natural laws, new laws of science that we don't understand, that we haven't known, and that our minds are too small to ever know, those begin to come into operation. Cthulhu is not magic. He just appears to be magic. Right? You might have heard that Arthur C. Clarke quotation, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That is what we encounter in a quasi-science fiction weird tale. Cthulhu is just an alien laying on the bottom of the ocean. And in that epithet that we read of him again and again, that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die, we're not being told that death can be transcended in supernatural means. Instead, we're being told that what we understand about the natural laws surrounding life and death are in fact pale shadows of the true natural laws. They're actually just a small portion of the true nature of the universe that we can't understand because it's beyond our understanding. Everything is natural, but it's a kind of natural that we can't grapple with and that we can't understand. Humans can only look at Cthulhu and look at the natural laws that govern his operation and try to neutralize it by saying it's supernatural. So all the religious cults that are generated around Cthulhu are just this feeble, failed human attempt to grapple with the fact that there are things in this universe that we cannot understand, natural laws that are beyond our ability to, well, ever learn. They're not supernatural, they're natural, but it's a kind of nature that is just beyond our understanding. And we're going to look at how Lovecraft very meticulously and carefully crafts his prose in order to grapple with and to convey the reality of cosmicism through the monsters that he creates, these symbolic representations of cosmicism itself, humanity's insignificant place in the universe, and the incomprehensibility of the natural laws that are actually governing the world beyond us. Now, with respect to the kinds of prose techniques that Lovecraft uses, Lovecraft is often accused of being a poor writer. He's accused of being someone with a great vision, a great imagination to think up these worlds, but his writing is actually terrible. Now, I would argue that this is absolutely not the case. H.P. Lovecraft shows a wide variety of prose styles in his works, moving from almost Hemingway-esque concision and conciseness in his prose to grandiose, baroque, elaborate structures. What Lovecraft does with his prose may not be to an individual's subjective taste, but his prose style itself is very carefully, very meticulously constructed in order to create the precise effects that he attempts to generate. He is constantly reflecting on his works. He is his own worst critic, carving out, excising, and refining pieces of his work in order to create precisely the correct sentence structure and the language that he uses. It seems to many contemporary readers who don't delve into his prose that he is just throwing adjectives at the wall, constructing these overly elaborate, ornate sentences. But in reality, his prose style is very carefully developed. He may be a poor writer by subjective standards, where in today we value conciseness and brevity in the structure of our language. And we want to hear a kind of conversational style in our writing or in the works that we read, largely because of the influence of modernist writers like Hemingway. But Lovecraft's style, even though it is not maybe to our taste, is still exceptionally complex and exceptionally intentional. He understands the kind of effect that he wants to create, and then develops a robust and ornate and very carefully and precisely targeted prose style in order to effect this sensation. And we're going to look at just a few examples of how he does that, of how carefully he generates these kinds of feelings and articulates his philosophical positions using the structures of his language and carefully modulated word choice as we examine the Call of Cthulhu and the Cthulhu bas-relief. I'm going to end this video here. And then in the next video, this part 2 of the Cthulhu bas-relief, we're going to look at a specific example of Lovecraft's prose style.